You've had many friendships, close personal relations with leaders that have existed on the African continent specifically. As far back as the likes of President Samora Machel to President Dos Santos in Angola, to brother leader, as he was affectionately known, President Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, President Kabila in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and many others. The reason why I raise this is we believe in the African continent. There's a Pan-Africanist view that exists in trying to bring Africa together, because if we don't come together, then we might as well forget about fighting for freedom as a continent. How are your relationships with some of the ex-presidents, ex-leaders of the continent, past and present? Do you believe that Africa will get it right? Because this is something that we've been trying to do for a very long time. But within ourselves, we face issues in the diaspora, with our expat communities, besides Eastern and the Western world, amongst ourselves, we face issues of xenophobia, a dislike that has popped up. It's, has it existed historically? Is it something new? So in a two-pronged question, how is your relationship and any of the leaders that you've had relationships with professionally and personally over time? Can you touch upon some of them who you looked up to? And then the second part of the question is, can we get it together? Are the differences amongst us still so strong that it's limiting our path to a united Africa?
Well, I have had good relations with all leaders in the continent. Some more closer, some not as close, but all of them I've had, and I've interacted with almost all of them. The old ones that when I came in, they were still there. If we talk Samora Machel, when shortly after the liberation of Mozambique, I went to stay there for 10 years. We became very close.
What time period would that have been? Just out of interest sake.
76. Okay. I went to Mozambique in 76. I think they just got their independence around 75 or something. I learned to work with him and other leaders of Frelimo. After him, it was President Chisano was the president of the country. After him, it was President Kebuza. After Kebuza is currently Nyusi. I've all worked with them. They were like my comrades, as well as in Angola. I didn't see a lot of President Agostinho Neto, but I'd seen a bit of him. But then President Dos Santos, we worked together with President Dos Santos for a long time. And then we became very close friends. I mean, I came after Kaunda, but we had worked with Kaunda during the struggle.
It was his birthday recently, by the way, just as you know. It was his birthday recently, if I think 2 or 3 days ago.
Yes, I sent a message to him. He was finishing 96th year. I sent a message, and then I think about 2 months ago, I spoke to him on the telephone. So I have known him, and quite a number of. I had known President Nyerere quite a lot. And after him, quite a number of presidents in Tanzania were all very close to them, all of them. I have worked with President Museveni for a long time. Has become a very good friend of mine. I've worked with President Kagame, good friend of mine as well. I've worked with old and new, including President Uhuru, who's now on in what you call it, Kenya. Mention any president in the continent during our time, when I was a deputy president and a president, I've worked with them.
President
We've
Mugabe.
discussed, sorry?
President Mugabe.
President Mugabe, worked with him during the struggle. We were together in Mozambique, and we worked with him, the president of Zimbabwe, up until the last minutes of his life. We were together. We became big friends as well. And we have discussed a number of, as you say, Comrade, in Algeria, worked with the president there. We worked also with President Gaddafi, and he became a good friend of mine as well. So there are many. Comrade Bashir in Sudan. Yes, Comrade.
No, we know about that one.
Absolutely. Yes, a comrade in South Sudan. I worked with comrade the president there. So I've worked with them.
Salva Kiir, yes.
Salva Kiir, yes. We have discussed serious issues with what you call the heads of states in Africa. West Africa, for an example, many presidents from Nigeria have come in a number of ways, as well as other countries out there.
Guinea, Conakry, Equatorial Guinea. Yes.
Yes, everywhere. I've worked with other presidents in the world, number of presidents in China, including the current one, Xi Jinping, what we call President Putin, great friend, both great friends of mine. At one point, you said we worked with President Lula. So I've worked, and we've discussed, I've attended a number of meetings. Looking at Africa, it has been my worry that Africa was colonized by Europe. And they employed very sophisticated methods of keeping Africa under their rule, whether directly or indirectly. And we've discussed this issue a great deal, and I think South Africa has been part of discussing, for an example, how do we unite Africa instead of Africa being controlled by former colonizers. We have agreed to soften the borders. The 5 economic regions are integrating. They are partly integrated now because of the discussions and the understanding that we had. I think we've done a lot to try to lessen the influence of the former colonizers. And there are issues for me that still remain when it comes to Africa, and many of the African leaders know my views very well. For an example, I don't understand why the Western world, or maybe to put it more accurately, the former colonizing countries, why are they still owning almost everything in Africa, even at the point when we are free? I see no reason why, as Africa, we have not taken a very strong stand that the mineral wealth of this huge continent should be controlled by us. We should by now have established that people who come to do trade with us, they come to do trade with us in our own terms, and we are able to determine how our gold, how our diamond, how our other precious kind of minerals are done, which are the center of the economy. For an example, why by now we have not established our industry that refine these things, whether it's gold or diamond or whatever, here, and sell it and do trade? Why do we still have to depend to countries across there? But those are matters which I am happy now to say I have met with a lot of young people in Africa who are now beginning to think in that direction, to say, let us change the things. We've played our part liberating Africa, etc. But I think the young people have got to sit and say, how do we change the balance? How do we change the trade? How do we do it in our favor? Because it is us who own resources, and why these resources are determined by other people. So those are matters I have raised with many of my comrades and what you call. But I think we are getting there because the young people are saying, no, we still have a lot to do in Africa and agree, but I think we are on the right path. The fact that now Africa talks on one voice in terms of trade, etc., we are emphasizing that. I am at least happy that that is taking place.
My take on Africa, and as young people, we definitely understand what the issues are. We are going to move forward, but there's certain challenges we need to get past, and challenges such as the mistrust, the misinformation out there that leads to issues such as xenophobia. We all live amongst each other. There's the legal part of it, there's the illegal part of it, how we treat each other. Some of us have lived in other countries. We have people living in our country. How to get that symbiotic relationship maintained, because that ecosystem is a very delicate one. So unless we overcome issues of really understanding each other and working together, it'll continue to be a challenge, because there is a resource curse that still exists in Africa. The resource curse being the level of wealth that our countries have throughout Africa. Mineral wealth, agricultural land, so agricultural wealth, and then how that has not translated into economic wealth in the hands of the people. So if you look at history and where we stand today, the number of resources, the value of the resources we have is not reflective of the development in that country and the disbursement of the riches in that country to the people of that country. And as you said, there's been a colonial issue that has existed and that still exists today, where the money is funneled out in sometimes clever ways and other times just very obvious ways, but that still happens. So we need to get to a point where the people of these countries that exist in Africa, our countries, benefit from it first. And we've looked at ways, you've looked at ways, leadership in the past has looked at ways of getting past these issues. The time is for less talk and more action. So I do agree with you that there's a younger crop, there's a younger generation that knows what needs to be done and is actively raising the bar and getting it done. And I have no doubt that we'll get there. But we just need to sort out some housekeeping issues that we have amongst ourselves, which are not serious issues. That's just misunderstanding.
No, that's very true. I am very happy that there is a really young generation that is thinking very hard. There are things that we needed to get rid of. For an example, in Africa, this business that a president who has been before others, when they come in, they persecute the other one, which led to people wanting to stay in power forever in order to avoid that. It is not good for Africa. And at some point I was discussing that even those who leave, there must be sufficient care taken of them, because if there is no care taken when they leave, that will also influence them to say, why do I go to poverty when I can stay here? So that causes a lot of other difficulties. But I'm happy that young people are really beginning to look at it. I'm very optimistic that Africa will turn around soon into a better kind of a continent. We have it all here. We have it all. I think when, for an example, when we had Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma as the chair, she actually brought in fresh air in that.
That will be the chair of the African Union.
Of the African Union. She brought a new kind of thing, and really the vision was clear. For an example, it was during her time that we were able to turn our focus to Africa more, as well as we talked about the infrastructure. And that infrastructure goes a long way, and I think that's a program that is ongoing, including the fastest train as part of the plan that could touch all the headquarters of the continent. So I think we have begun to look, and I think we are beginning to move, only that a new kind of energy from the young people is needed.
Yeah, I think that the founding bricks are there, the founding stones, should I say. You look at the SADC region and how Africa has been split up: SADC, ECOWAS, East Africa. So the intra-trade that's been promoted regionally, and how those regions finally come together. There's challenges of logistics. You've spoken of in the past of a railway network that connects Africa from north to south, east to west, a road network that connects, because that is one of the biggest hindrances. There's logistics, there's communications, there's fiber that's been laid across, the western part of the continent. But I mean, at the end of the day, unless it reaches everybody, it's very difficult to get these countries operating at an optimal pace. But that's the African story, and that's something that we'll keep an eye on as we move along, because we want to see the best for Africa, and we're actively involved with our neighbors and our good friends all over Africa, in pushing the boundaries into getting Africa to a point where it's really solidly united, not just on paper, not just by regions or by bodies that are created, bodies talking about institutions, but by actual fact and reality. And we'll get that done. I think we have that when we have the basis has been set. We will build on that.
I'm happy. I'm very happy.